In the vast expanse of the Andromeda Galaxy, far beyond the reach of human telescopes and dreams, lay a coalition of advanced alien civilizations known as the Vexari Dominion. These beings were not just technologically superior, they were masters of their universe, having conquered countless worlds across star systems. Their ships glided silently through space like sleek predators, their weapons capable of reducing entire planets to ash in moments. To them, Earth was nothing more than an insignificant speck, a primitive rock orbiting a dim yellow sun. For centuries, humanity had been broadcasting its existence into the cosmos with hopeful messages, music, and images of life on Earth. But these transmissions only served to amuse the Vexari. They saw humans as fragile, chaotic creatures, little more than animals playing at intelligence. The Dominion's leaders often laughed at Earth's attempts to communicate, dismissing it as childish noise from a species unworthy of notice. Yet, beneath their arrogance lay curiosity. Why would such feeble beings waste energy sending signals into the void? It puzzled them, but not enough to warrant serious attention. That changed when scout drones sent back reports about Earth's resources. Beneath its thin atmosphere lay untapped riches, rare minerals, oceans teeming with organic compounds, and fertile land ripe for exploitation. For the Vexari, this discovery turned Earth from a mere curiosity into a target. A council meeting, convened aboard their colossal flagship, the Obsidian Crown. There, under shimmering holographic projections of Earth's continents, they declared war, not because humanity posed any real threat, but because conquering Earth promised wealth and power. On Earth, no one knew what was coming. Life continued, as usual, oblivious to the shadow creeping across the stars. In bustling cities, people went about their routines, working, laughing, dreaming. Even astronomers peering into deep space failed to detect the faint hum of engines powering thousands of Vexari warships heading towards Sol. Humanity remained blissfully unaware that doom approached. But then something unexpected happened. One night, in a small observatory nestled in the mountains of Chile, Dr. Elena Vega noticed a strange anomaly. A cluster of objects moving against the backdrop of stars caught her eye. At first, she thought it might be debris or malfunctioning equipment, but as she analyzed the data, her heart sank. These weren't random rocks, they were organized formations, traveling with purpose, and they were heading straight for Earth. Elena immediately alerted global authorities, sharing her findings. Her warnings were met with skepticism. After all, humanity had dreamed of first contact for generations, imagining benevolent visitors bringing peace and knowledge. No one wanted to believe that the first extraterrestrial encounter could be hostile. Politicians hesitated, scientists debated, and conspiracy theorists rejoiced. Days passed without decisive action. Meanwhile, the Vexari fleet drew closer. From their vantage point among the stars, they watched Earth's scattered responses with disdain. Humans argued amongst themselves, unable to unite even in the face of impending disaster. This confirmed everything the Vexari believed about humanity. That they were weak, divided, and easy prey. Yet what the Vexari didn't know was that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or military might. It was something deeper, something unpredictable. Hidden within humanity's chaos was a spark of ingenuity, resilience, and determination that no alien race could anticipate. As the Vexari entered Earth's solar system, they broadcast a chilling message across all frequencies. Your world is now ours. Surrender and we may spare your lives. The ultimatum echoed around the globe, striking fear into billions of hearts. Governments scrambled to respond, but panic spread faster than solutions. And yet amidst the terror there were whispers of defiance. In secret labs, engineers worked tirelessly to adapt old technologies for defense. In quiet towns, ordinary citizens began organizing networks to resist. And in the depths of Earth's oceans, naval forces prepared ancient warships once thought obsolete, retrofitting them with experimental weapons born of desperation. Unbeknownst to the Vexari, humanity had begun to awaken. What started as chaos was slowly transforming into unity. People who had never met, separated by borders and languages, found common ground in survival. Ideas flowed freely between nations, fueled by necessity rather than politics. Humanity wasn't surrendering. It was fighting back piece by piece. The Vexari, confident in their superiority, dismissed these efforts as futile. They assumed that humanity's primitive nature would prevent any meaningful resistance. But as their massive armada descended upon Earth, ready to deliver the final blow, they failed to see the storm brewing below. What they encountered next would shatter every assumption they had ever made about the little blue planet, and about the tenacity of its inhabitants. Little did the Vexari know, humanity's deadliest weapon wasn't forged in factories or built in shipyards. It was something far more powerful, something rooted in the very essence of what it meant to be human, and soon the invaders would learn exactly why underestimating Earth was the gravest mistake they could have made. The Vexari fleet descended upon Earth like a swarm of metallic locusts, their enormous ships blotting out the sun as they entered orbit. Panic swept across the planet, but not everyone reacted with fear. In a remote naval base on the coast of Norway, Captain Marcus Hale stood on the deck of an old battleship named the Iron Resolve. Once considered obsolete and destined for scrap, the ship had been hastily retrofitted with experimental plasma cannons, scavenged from abandoned research projects. Marcus wasn't a scientist or a politician. He was just a sailor who believed in doing his duty, no matter how hopeless things seemed. When the Vexari broadcast their ultimatum, "Surrender, and we may spare your lives," Marcus clenched his fists tightly around the railing. He felt anger bubbling inside him, not just at the arrogance of the message, but at the way humanity had been underestimated yet again. To the Vexari, humans were nothing more than ants to be crushed underfoot. But Marcus knew better. Humanity might have been flawed, chaotic, and divided, but it also possessed something that no alien race could ever predict: sheer determination. As the first wave of smaller Vexari scout ships entered Earth's atmosphere, governments scrambled to respond. Military commanders debated strategies, some advocating for surrender while others pushed for resistance. The United Nations convened an emergency session, but progress was slow. Meanwhile, ordinary people began taking matters into their own hands. In cities, towns, and villages, makeshift defenses sprang up. Anything from welded metal barricades to jury-rigged drones armed with whatever weapons could be salvaged. Marcus received orders to hold position near the Norwegian coastline, where intelligence suggested the Vexari would test Earth's defenses before launching a full-scale assault. His crew consisted of volunteers, men and women who refused to abandon their homes without a fight. Among them was Lieutenant Sophia Chen, a brilliant engineer who had helped retrofit the Iron Resolve. She worked tirelessly alongside her team, ensuring every system aboard the ship functioned perfectly despite its age. When the first Vexari scout ship appeared over the horizon, glowing ominously against the grey sky, tension crackled through the air. The alien vessel hovered silently, scanning the area with beams of light that pierced through clouds. Then, without warning, it fired, a single energy blast that struck the water mere meters away from the Iron Resolve, sending up a towering plume of steam. "Steady," Marcus commanded, his voice calm but firm. "Hold fire until I give the order." His crew exchanged nervous glances. Against such advanced technology, their chances seemed slim, yet none of them hesitated. They trusted Marcus, and they weren't about to let their planet fall without putting up a fight. Moments later, the Vexari ship unleashed another attack, this time targeting a nearby coastal town. Buildings crumbled, and fires erupted as terrified civilians fled for safety. Marcus gritted his teeth. He couldn't save everyone, but he could make the invaders pay for their cruelty. "Fire everything," he shouted, giving the command they'd all been waiting for. The Iron Resolve roared to life, its plasma cannons lighting up the sky with bursts of searing energy. The blasts struck the Vexari ship, causing visible damage to its sleek hull. The alien craft wavered mid-air, clearly surprised by the ferocity of the counterattack. For a moment, it seemed as though the human defenders might actually stand a chance. But then the Vexari responded. A barrage of energy beams lashed out, striking the Iron Resolve with devastating force. Alarms blared as sections of the ship caught fire, and crew members scrambled to contain the damage. Despite the chaos, Marcus remained focused. "Keep firing," he yelled. "We're not done yet." What happened next shocked even Marcus. As the battle raged, several civilian fishing boats emerged from the foggy waters, each equipped with crude missile launchers cobbled together from spare parts. These were local fishermen who had refused to flee, choosing instead to join the fight. Their missiles struck the Vexari ship repeatedly, further destabilizing it. The alien vessel shuddered violently before finally exploding in a brilliant flash of light. For a brief moment, cheers erupted from the surviving defenders. They had won. A small victory, but a victory nonetheless. However, their celebration was short-lived. High above, dozens of other Vexari ships loomed menacingly, watching the skirmish unfold, clearly intrigued and perhaps disturbed by humanity's unexpected response. The invaders hesitated to retaliate immediately. On board one of the larger Vexari vessels, Commander Xylar stared at the holographic display showing the destruction of their scout ship. His expression was unreadable, though his subordinates could sense his unease. Humans were supposed to be primitive, easy to crush. Yet here they were, using outdated technology and sheer willpower to mount a credible defense. "What is this?" Xylar muttered, his voice tinged with disbelief. "How can these creatures adapt so quickly?" Back on Earth, Marcus surveyed the smoking remains of the battle. His ship was badly damaged, and many lives had been lost. But something remarkable had happened. Ordinary people, farmers, engineers, soldiers, and even children, had come together in defiance of overwhelming odds. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving that humanity wouldn't go quietly into the night. As the Vexari fleet prepared for a second wave of attacks, Marcus turned to his crew. "They underestimated us," he said, his voice steady. "Let's make sure they regret it." Across the globe, similar stories of resistance unfolded. In Japan, retired pilots took to the skies in vintage fighter jets modified with cutting-edge tech. In Africa, villagers used homemade EMP devices to disable grounded Vexari drones. And in space, a daring group of astronauts aboard the International Space Station launched a surprise attack on a passing Vexari supply ship, destroying it with a stolen prototype weapon. Each act of defiance sent a message loud and clear. Humanity wasn't going to roll over. Even when faced with extinction, humans found ways to fight back. Not because they were stronger or smarter, but because they refused to give up. Commander Xylar watched the reports pouring in from his scouts, his confusion growing. These humans didn't behave like any species he had encountered before. Instead of collapsing under pressure, they grew bolder, more resourceful. Every defeat only fueled their resolve. "They are unpredictable," Xylar admitted to his advisors. Perhaps too unpredictable. Little did the Vexari know, their war of conquest was about to become something far more complicated. Humanity had been underestimated once, and now it was poised to turn the tables. The real challenge was only beginning. The initial skirmishes between humanity and the Vexari had revealed something neither side anticipated. Humans weren't going to surrender easily. Across Earth, pockets of resistance continued to grow, fueled by desperation, ingenuity, and sheer determination. The Vexari, who had expected a swift victory over what they deemed an inferior species, found themselves increasingly perplexed by humanity's resilience. What should have been a simple conquest was turning into a protracted struggle, one that tested not only their military might, but also their understanding of the creatures they sought to dominate. In Norway, Captain Marcus Hale and his crew aboard the Iron Resolve worked tirelessly to repair their battered ship. Though victorious in their first encounter with the Vexari, the cost had been high. Many lives were lost, and morale among the survivors wavered. Yet Marcus refused to let despair take hold. He gathered his crew on the deck one evening as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues. "We've shown them we can fight," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the fatigue etched into his face. "But this is just the beginning. They'll come back stronger, faster, and angrier. We need to be ready." His words resonated deeply with those around him. Each member of the crew knew the stakes. They weren't fighting for glory or riches. They were fighting for survival, for their families, and for the future of their species. This shared purpose became the glue holding them together, even as the odds stacked higher against them. Meanwhile, far from the battlefields, Dr. Elena Vega, the astronomer who had first detected the Vexari fleet, was working on a groundbreaking discovery. Hidden away in a secure underground lab in Geneva, she collaborated with a team of scientists and engineers to decode fragments of data intercepted from the Vexari transmissions. It wasn't easy. The alien language was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. But through sheer persistence and creativity, Elena's team began piecing together patterns. One night, after hours of relentless effort, Elena made a breakthrough. She uncovered a critical vulnerability in the Vexari ship's shielding systems, a flaw caused by harmonic resonance frequencies. If exploited correctly, it could disable entire fleets without firing a single shot. Her hands trembled as she relayed the information to global defense networks. "This changes everything," Elena whispered to herself, staring at the glowing screen before her. For the first time since the invasion began, hope flickered within her heart. Humanity now had a weapon, not forged from steel or plasma, but from knowledge and collaboration. As news of Elena's discovery spread, human forces worldwide adapted their strategies accordingly. Engineers raced to modify existing weapons, incorporating sound-based technologies designed to exploit the Vexari shield's weakness. In Japan, retired pilots retrofitted their vintage jets with sonic emitters capable of emitting precise frequency waves. In South America, guerrilla fighters armed themselves with portable devices that emitted low-frequency pulses, disrupting smaller Vexari drones. The Vexari, however, were no fools. As reports of unusual tactics reached Commander Xylar aboard his flagship, the Obsidian Crown, he ordered his scientists to investigate. At first, they dismissed the scattered human efforts as random acts of chance. Surely such primitive beings couldn't possibly understand advanced physics or engineering. But as more incidents occurred, ships disabled mid-battle, drones falling silent without explanation, Xylar grew uneasy. "They're learning," he muttered during a tense meeting with his advisors. "How are they adapting so quickly?" One of his subordinates hesitated before responding. Perhaps they are sharing information, working together in ways we do not fully comprehend." Xylar frowned. Cooperation was a concept the Vexari understood intellectually, but they rarely practiced it themselves. Their empire thrived on domination and control, not unity. The idea that humans, a species they considered chaotic and disorganized, could achieve such coordination baffled him. Back on Earth, the growing spirit of collaboration extended beyond technology. Ordinary citizens rallied behind their defenders, offering whatever resources they could spare. Farmers donated food to feed soldiers stationed near conflict zones. Artists painted murals depicting heroes rising from the ashes, inspiring courage in war-torn communities. Children crafted makeshift flags bearing symbols of hope, waving them proudly in defiance of the invaders above. In one particularly moving moment, a young girl named Amara approached a group of weary soldiers guarding her village in India. She held out a small wooden carving of a bird in flight, its wings stretched wide. "For you," she said softly, "so you remember why we fight. To be free." The soldiers exchanged emotional glances before accepting the gift. That night, they placed the carving atop their barricade, where it stood as a reminder of the humanity they were fighting to protect. Despite these moments of unity, the challenges remained immense. The Vexari launched wave after wave of attacks, targeting major cities and infrastructure hubs. Power grids failed, communication networks collapsed, and millions were displaced. Yet even in the darkest hours, humanity's creativity shone brightest. In New York City, engineers rigged skyscrapers with reflective surfaces to confuse Vexari targeting systems. In Australia, indigenous communities used ancient fire techniques to create smoke screens that obscured troop movements. Commander Xylar watched the unfolding chaos with mounting frustration. Every attempt to crush humanity seemed to spawn new methods of resistance. Even when entire regions fell under Vexari control, pockets of rebellion persisted, striking unexpectedly and vanishing before retaliation could be mounted. One evening, as Xylar gazed at Earth through the observation window of his flagship, he felt a pang of doubt, an emotion unfamiliar to him. The blue planet below shimmered with life, its oceans glinting like jewels under the light of its sun. Despite the destruction wrought upon it, Earth still pulsed with vitality. The humans hadn't given up. Not yet. They are unlike any foe. So we've faced, Xylar admitted aloud, his voice heavy with unease. Their strength lies not in weapons or numbers, but in something deeper, something intangible. Unbeknownst to the Vexari, their greatest challenge was about to arrive. Humanity's adaptability, resourcefulness, and unyielding spirit were coalescing into something formidable, a force that no amount of advanced technology could suppress. The tide of the war was shifting, and the invaders were beginning to realize that conquering Earth would require far more than brute force. Little did either side know, the true turning point in this conflict was closer than anyone imagined. And when it came, it would change everything, for both humanity and the Vexari. The war between humanity and the Vexari had reached a critical juncture. Earth's skies burned with the trails of alien ships, its cities lay in ruins, and millions were displaced. Yet amidst the devastation, something remarkable was happening. Humanity wasn't just surviving, it was evolving. The scattered acts of resistance that had once seemed futile were now coalescing into a unified effort, driven by shared purpose and ingenuity. And then came the moment that would change everything. In Geneva, Dr. Elena Vega stood at the heart of a bustling command center, surrounded by scientists, engineers, and military strategists. Her discovery about the harmonic resonance flaw in the Vexari shields had become the cornerstone of humanity's counterattack strategy. Teams across the globe worked around the clock to develop weapons capable of exploiting this vulnerability. But time was running out. The Vexari had begun deploying massive dreadnoughts, colossal ships armed with planet-destroying weaponry that could annihilate entire continents if left unchecked. Elena stared at a holographic map displaying the locations of these dreadnoughts. As they approached Earth's orbit, one ship, designated VX-9, loomed over North America, preparing to unleash its devastating payload on New York City. If it succeeded, the loss of life would be catastrophic, and morale among human forces would crumble. Desperation filled the room as leaders debated how to respond. "We need to hit them where it hurts," said General Samuel Carter, a grizzled veteran overseeing global defense operations. "But we don't have enough firepower to take down a dreadnought." Elena hesitated before speaking. "Maybe we don't need brute force," she suggested quietly. "What if we use their own arrogance against them?" Her idea was bold and risky. Rather than attacking the dreadnought directly, she proposed luring it into a trap using decoy signals broadcast from multiple locations. By mimicking the harmonic frequencies of the Vexari shields, they could confuse the ship's targeting systems long enough to disable it. The plan required precise timing, flawless coordination, and sacrifices no one wanted to make. But it was their best chance as preparations began. Captain Marcus Hale received orders to lead a daring mission. His battered battleship, the Iron Resolve, would serve as bait, drawing the attention of VX-9 while smaller strike teams moved into position. Marcus didn't hesitate. He knew the risks. If anything went wrong, his crew wouldn't survive. But he also understood the stakes. This wasn't just about saving New York, it was about proving to the Vexari that humanity couldn't be broken. The operation launched under cover of darkness. As the Iron Resolve sailed into open waters off the eastern seaboard, its hull bristling with retrofitted plasma cannons and sonic emitters, the rest of the fleet remained hidden. Civilians along the coast watched anxiously, unsure whether they were witnessing a final stand or a desperate gamble. High above, Commander Xylar observed the unfolding scene from aboard the Obsidian Crown. Sensors indicated unusual activity near New York, but he dismissed it as another feeble attempt by humans to resist. Still, something nagged at him, a sense of unease he couldn't shake. These creatures had surprised him before, and he couldn't afford complacency. "Focus fire on the largest vessel," Xylar ordered, directing VX-9 in to target the Iron Resolve. "Eliminate it quickly." As the dreadnought descended, its shadow blotting out the stars, Marcus gave the order to activate the decoy signals. Instantly, dozens of false readings appeared on the Vexari scanners, creating chaos within their systems. Confused, VX-9 fired blindly, missing the Iron Resolve entirely. Meanwhile, hidden strike teams closed in, launching synchronized attacks on the dreadnought's weakened shield generators. Explosions lit up the night sky as human fighters swarmed the behemoth, their improvised weapons striking true. Back aboard. The Iron Resolve. Marcus clenched his jaw as alarms blared and hull breaches threatened to sink the ship. "Hold steady," he shouted. "We're not done yet." For a moment, it seemed like the plan might fail. The dreadnought retaliated with overwhelming force, obliterating several strike vessels in an instant. But then, something extraordinary happened. A team of civilian engineers, piloting repurposed cargo ships outfitted with experimental EMP devices, managed to breach the dreadnought's defenses. Their sacrifice disabled key systems aboard VX-9, leaving it vulnerable. Seizing the opportunity, Eleanor's team activated the final phase of the operation. From hidden positions around the globe, coordinated bursts of harmonic resonance waves struck the dreadnought simultaneously. Its shields collapsed, and its weapons fell silent. For the first time, a Vexari dreadnought, the symbol of their invincibility, was rendered powerless. Commander Xylar watched in stunned silence as reports poured in. VX-9 was adrift, its crew struggling to regain control. Worse still, the humans showed no signs of relenting. Instead, they pressed their advantage, launching boarding parties to seize the crippled ship. It was unthinkable. How had these primitive beings orchestrated such a complex maneuver? This cannot be," Xylar muttered, his voice trembling with disbelief. They should not possess this level of coordination. On Earth, celebrations erupted as news of the victory spread. People danced in the streets, tears streaming down their faces. For the first time since the invasion began, there was tangible hope. The tide of the war had shifted, not through superior technology, but through unity, creativity, and sheer determination. Yet for Marcus and his crew, there was little time to celebrate. As they limped back to port, battered but victorious, Marcus reflected on the cost of their triumph. Lives had been lost, sacrifices made. But he also saw something else, a spark of resilience that refused to dim. Humanity had proven itself capable of more than anyone, including themselves, had imagined. In the aftermath of the battle, Commander Xylar convened an emergency council aboard the Obsidian Crown. His advisors argued over the implications of the defeat, some calling for immediate retaliation, others urging caution. But Xylar remained silent, lost in thought. For the first time, he questioned the wisdom of waging war against Earth. These humans weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to prove something profound. "They are not what we thought," Xylar finally said, his voice heavy with realization. Perhaps we have underestimated them too much." Unbeknownst to both sides, the events of that night marked a turning point, not just in the war, but in the way each species viewed the other. The Vexari had come to conquer, but they had encountered something far greater than they anticipated, the indomitable spirit of humanity. And though the conflict was far from over, the seeds of change had been sown. The galaxy would never be the same again. The final assault on the Obsidian Crown began under the cover of Earth's stormy skies, with lightning illuminating the chaos below. Humanity's last stand was a desperate gamble, but it carried the weight of billions who refused to give up. Every ship, every fighter, and every civilian volunteer knew that failure meant extinction. Yet instead of fear, there was resolve. Quiet determination born from months of sacrifice, loss, and unity. Captain Marcus Hale stood at the helm of the Iron Resolve, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of control panels. The battleship had been patched together one last time, its hull reinforced with scrap metal and its engines running on borrowed time. Around him, his crew moved with purpose, their eyes fixed on the massive silhouette of the obsidian crown looming ahead. It was a fortress in space, bristling with weapons and surrounded by smaller Vexari escorts. To attack it head-on seemed suicidal, but humanity had no other choice. "Remember why we're here," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the turbulence shaking the ship. "Not for revenge, not for glory, for each other, for Earth." His words resonated deeply with the crew. Each person aboard had lost something or someone to this war. But they fought not out of hatred for the Vexari, but out of love for what remained. That spirit fueled them as they prepared to charge into the heart of the enemy fleet. Human forces launched the operation in waves, using decoy signals and harmonic resonance devices to confuse the Vexari defenses. Fighters swarmed around the escorts, drawing fire while larger ships closed in on the obsidian crown. Among the attackers were repurposed cargo vessels, retrofitted with experimental EMP cannons and piloted by civilians who had never seen combat before. Their bravery astonished even seasoned soldiers like Marcus. Commander Xylar watched the unfolding battle from the bridge of the obsidian crown. His expression betrayed both frustration and awe. The humans were relentless, throwing everything they had left into the fight. Ships exploded in fiery bursts, debris scattering across space, yet more kept coming. What struck Xylar most was how willingly these creatures sacrificed themselves, not for personal gain, but for the collective good. They should have broken by now, he muttered, gripping the edge of his command console. "Why do they persist?" "It is illogical," Commander Vera replied, her tone clipped. "Their actions defy all reason." Xylar shook his head. Perhaps logic does not define them." As the battle raged, humanity's ingenuity reached new heights. Engineers. Aboard the human flagship deployed drones equipped with harmonic resonance emitters, targeting key systems on the obsidian crown. The shields flickered, weakened, but not yet disabled. Seeing an opportunity, Marcus ordered the Iron Resolve to accelerate toward the flagship, its plasma cannons firing continuously. "Hold tight," Marcus shouted as the ship shuddered violently under return fire. Smoke filled the air, alarms blared, and sparks flew from damaged consoles. Yet the crew held their ground, determined to reach their goal. Meanwhile, Dr. Elena Vega coordinated efforts from Geneva, guiding pilots and engineers through real-time adjustments to their strategies. Her voice crackled over comms channels, calm and reassuring. "Focus on the shield generators," she instructed. "Without those, we can end this." Inspired by her guidance, a squadron of silent strikers infiltrated the obsidian crown itself, using stolen cloaking technology to bypass security. Led by Aiko, the group planted explosive charges near critical systems. As they worked, they encountered Vexari soldiers, leading to tense skirmishes in the ship's narrow corridors. Outnumbered and outgunned, the humans relied on speed and cunning to survive. Back outside, the tide began to turn. Human fighters overwhelmed the escorts, clearing a path for the Iron Resolve to make its final approach. Marcus steered the ship directly into the flagship's weakened shields, ramming it with enough force to breach the hull. The impact sent shockwaves through both vessels, knocking out power temporarily. Inside. The obsidian crown. Chaos erupted. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and gravity fluctuated wildly. Taking advantage of the confusion, Aiko's team detonated their charges, crippling the flagship's core systems. The once mighty vessel listed dangerously, its weapons falling silent. On the bridge, Xylar stared at the devastation around him. For the first time, he felt fear, not for himself, but for his people. Had they made a terrible mistake? Were they truly the villains in this story? "We must retreat," Vera urged, her voice trembling. "If we stay, we risk losing everything." Xylar hesitated, then nodded. "Signal the fleet. Withdraw." As the Vexari began retreating, humanity pressed its advantage. Fighters pursued, fleeing ships, while engineers boarded the obsidian crown to secure vital data and ensure it wouldn't be used against them again. Marcus led his crew onto the flagship, finding Xylar still standing on the bridge amidst the wreckage. "You underestimated us," Marcus said, his voice firm but not triumphant. "You thought we were weak because we're different. But our strength comes from standing together, even when it costs us everything." Xylar met his gaze, his pride shattered. "I see that now," he admitted quietly. Perhaps your kind has much to teach us." The battle ended with the Obsidian Crown, drifting powerless in orbit, its crew either captured or evacuated. Humanity had won, not through brute force but through creativity, unity, and unyielding spirit. News of the victory spread across Earth, sparking celebrations tempered by grief. The cost had been immense, but the outcome was clear. Humanity would endure. For the first time, the Vexari saw humans not as primitive beings to be conquered, but as equals worthy of respect. And though the scars of war would take generations to heal, both species emerged changed forever. Earth's skies cleared, revealing stars that seemed brighter than ever before. In that moment, humanity realized they weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for a future where hope could shine through even the darkest times. The war was over, but its echoes lingered across the galaxy. Earth stood battered, yet unbroken, a testament to humanity's resilience. The Vexari fleet had withdrawn, leaving behind shattered ships and unanswered questions. For the first time in their long history, the Dominion had been forced to retreat, not by superior firepower or cunning strategy, but by the indomitable spirit of a species they once dismissed as insignificant. Commander Xylar gazed out at the stars from the safety of his remaining flagship, the Shadow Veil, as it drifted far from Earth's orbit. His mind replayed the events that led to this moment, the defiance of humans, their creativity, their unity. He couldn't shake the image of Marcus Hale standing before him on the bridge of the Obsidian Crown, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Our strength comes from standing together," Marcus had said. Those words haunted Xylar, forcing him to confront truths he had spent centuries ignoring. For the Vexari, conquest had always been about dominance, about proving superiority through force. But humanity had shown them another way. They didn't fight for power. They fought for each other. Their courage wasn't born of arrogance but of love, for their families, their homes, their future. It was a concept alien to the Vexari, one that challenged everything they believed about themselves and their place in the universe. "We have much to learn," Xylar murmured during a quiet meeting with his advisors. "Perhaps our greatest mistake was assuming we knew what strength truly meant." His words sparked heated debates among the council members. Some argued that retreating was a sign of weakness, while others acknowledged that humanity's victory revealed flaws in their own philosophy. Slowly, reluctantly, the Vexari began to reconsider their approach, not just toward Earth, but toward all civilizations they encountered. The war had changed them, just as it had changed humanity. On Earth, the aftermath of the conflict brought both celebration and sorrow. Cities lay in ruins, fields were scorched, and millions mourned loved ones lost. Yet amidst the devastation there was hope. People came together to rebuild, driven by the same determination that had fueled their resistance. In Tokyo, Aiko joined volunteers clearing rubble, her hands blistered but her heart full. "We won't let them take this from us," she told anyone who would listen. "Not now, not ever." In Norway, Captain Marcus Hale walked along the coastline where the Iron Resolve had made its final stand. The ship was gone now, resting at the bottom of the ocean after its heroic charge into the Obsidian Crown. But its legacy lived on, in stories shared around campfires, in murals painted on crumbling walls, in the hearts of those who refused to surrender. Marcus knelt by the water's edge, scooping up a handful of sand. He thought of his crew, many of whom hadn't survived the battle. Their sacrifices weighed heavily on him, but so did their triumph. "You did good," he whispered, to the waves, "all of you." Dr. Elena Vega stood in Geneva, watching as engineers pored over data recovered from the Obsidian Crown. The knowledge they uncovered promised breakthroughs in technology, medicine, and energy production. Humanity had gained more than victory. They had gained insight into a civilization vastly different from their own. And though the road ahead was uncertain, Eleanor felt a spark of optimism. "This is only the beginning," she said during a press conference broadcast worldwide. "We've shown the galaxy that humanity isn't afraid to face challenges head-on. Together, we can build something greater than we ever imagined." Across the planet, people found ways to honor the fallen while looking toward the future. In Brazil, Carlos planted rows of saplings in memory of those who had died defending their land. In New York City, survivors gathered in Central Park to sing songs of gratitude and resilience. Children drew pictures of stars and planets, imagining a day when humanity might explore the cosmos alongside the Vexari, not as enemies, but as equals. Months later, an unexpected message arrived from deep space. It was brief, simple, and devoid of hostility. "To the people of Earth, you have earned our respect. We will watch and learn." The transmission sent shockwaves through global leadership. Was this an olive branch, a gesture of peace? No one knew for sure. But it marked a turning point, a chance to redefine the relationship between humanity and the Vexari. Diplomatic teams prepared cautiously optimistic responses, emphasizing cooperation over conflict. As night fell over Earth, Marcus climbed to the top of a hill overlooking the sea. The sky above shimmered with countless stars, each one a reminder of how small humanity was in the grand scheme of things, and yet how powerful. He thought about the journey that had brought them here, the fear, the loss, the moments of doubt and triumph. Humanity had faced annihilation and emerged stronger because of it. "The galaxy doesn't know us yet," Marcus said softly, as if speaking to the stars themselves. "But they will. And when they do, they'll see what we're capable of. Not just in war, but in peace." Far away aboard the Shadow Veil, Commander Xylar watched Earth grow smaller in the distance. Though defeated, he felt no shame. Instead, he felt curiosity, and perhaps even admiration. The humans had taught him something profound. True strength wasn't about domination or control. It was about connection, compassion, and the willingness to stand together against impossible odds. "They are remarkable," Xylar admitted to himself, his gaze lingering on the blue-green orb fading into the void. Perhaps we can be too." And so the story of humanity's defiance against the Vexari became legend, not just among humans, but across the stars. It was a tale of courage, ingenuity, and unity. A reminder that even in the darkest times, hope could shine brightest. The galaxy had underestimated Earth once. It wouldn't make that mistake again. Above it all, the stars burned brighter than ever, witnesses to a new chapter in the endless saga of life.